Welcome to the B.F. Anderson Techno Fundamental Report for May 1st. And the month has turned. Stanley Druckenmiller is a very famous investment advisor, been very successful. The way to build superior long-term returns is through preservation of capital and home runs. When you have tremendous conviction on a trade, you have to go for the jugular. It takes courage to be a pig. This is a very true statement because I think you have to realize that the market has its moments. And there are moments where there is the possibility of making home run gains, but you have to preserve the capital in the process. So when you get into a negative, difficult market, the best thing to do is use defensive strategies. But when things turn to the positive, you have to become a pig and get aggressive. I'm very impressed with Scott Bessent, our Treasury Secretary. He is appearing to be very competent in his negotiations on the tariffs. Can tariffs be a one-time price adjustment? Yes. But across the continuum, I am not worried about inflation. We have two classes of forecasters, those who don't know and those who don't know they don't know. John Kenneth Galbraith. Now, I thought it was interesting. I saw this report on the first 74 trading days of the year. And you can see here in 2025, we have had probably one of the worst periods in history. The only two periods that exceed it are 1932 and 1939. So the point is that we've had a very difficult start to the year, but that doesn't mean that things are going to be negative for the year. I mean, you can see here we've had other years that were pretty much just as negative that ended up positive. But this has been a difficult year, so let's take a look at the graphs just to see where we stand. Now, we're still below the 200-day moving average on both the S&P and the NASDAQ. I would really like to see the market or these indexes get back above that 200-day. Now, this indicator here is one that I want to talk about. This is one where we're looking for, first thing we're looking for is a bottom, and then we want to start to see the market trend upward, which it's currently doing. So here we have the 25-day moving average, and we have broken above it on this particular index, which is the NASDAQ. Now, we want to see at least 3 out of 5 do this of the 5 indicators, the indexes that we're going to look at. But the main thing we want to see is that lower moving average start to turn up, which just hasn't happened yet. So here are the mid caps. You can see the same story. They're above the lower moving average, but the lower moving average is still in a downtrend, which is not a positive. New York Stock Exchange, same thing. As we go through this, then you have your small caps, which are really the index that is struggling the most. So not a lot of improvement, some improvement, and we're starting to see possibly the process of a bottom beginning. Now here's the S&P 500. You can see the same thing, but again, that lower moving average, it needs to turn up. It just hasn't happened yet. Now here's the aggression index. You can see here we're continuing on a death cross. However, it looks like it's trying to stabilize, but just be aware. The aggression index continues to be negative, but somewhat trying to improve. Now, interest rates, big changes here in interest rate, real big changes here. This is the 5-year Treasury yield. Now, realize the Federal Reserve sets the Fed funds rate as a human thing, whereas the real market, the actual free market is really going to determine what's going on here. Now you can see here with the power index, we have now crossed below zero and actually having a dramatic drop. Now the purpose of this indicator is to simply say we think the Federal Reserve may start cutting interest rates now because the free market is basically saying that. On the 5-year, we're down to 3.7.5, and that's low. Now here's the volatility index, the VIX. Now the rule here is on the VIX that if you get a rise above 50 and then you drop below 30, That tends to be a market bottom, so hopefully this indicator is correct. Price of oil. Price of oil is really starting to drop here. We're down to under $60 a barrel. You can see that we are in a downtrend on the price of oil. Now, the other news is everybody, as of last Friday, continues to be extremely bearish. Now, again, that's usually what happens at market bottoms. Now, it may take a while, but there's a lot of pessimism out there. Now, I can't tell you how many people I'm running into nowadays. They used to talk about NVIDIA. Now they're talking about gold. Now, gold has had a tremendous rally, but it is kind of starting to look suspicious here, so I would be very careful about that particular situation. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you very much.